Did everybody figure out kind of where you like to hang out on the grid? Did you notice where you hang out? Where?
Left field.
This side? Anybody else notice something that you're like, oh, I kind of hang out right there? Come on, tell me.
Future. Present.
Present? Okay. I see that. Present. What? Who else?
We were. It was clear we were trying to force ourselves to talk about feelings, but
You avoided the feelings?
every once in a while we get sort of a response about that, and we didn't instantly go to action.
So mostly here, though. Yeah. Action oriented.
Also forcing themselves to move away from feelings.
Yeah. Anybody else?
Action present.
Action present. So it was very specific right there.
Yeah.
Any other ones? Did you find yourself trying to ask a question in a category that you never do? Like, and how weird that feels? It's so, I'll just walk you just real quick through changing something like that. When you do something new like that, it's gonna feel really awkward. And then you're gonna feel like a big fake. And that's normal because that's not you, right? Whenever you're doing something new that you never do, you're going to feel weird. You're going to feel like an imposter. You're doing this weird new thing. And then after you keep doing it for a while, you'll hit a wall. And the wall is, I don't believe this. This is stupid. I'm not doing it. Or, okay, let's keep this. I'm gonna add this to my repertoire. Here's actually something I'm gonna try. And when you do that, when you add that thing, you've got that extra piece. Now all of a sudden, you've got more tools in your tool belt. But it's a normal process to go through that sort of all right, I feel awkward about this. Now I feel kind of like a fake. And then you kind of hit a wall. And then you it's a decision moment right there where you're going to kind of either keep it or kind of get rid of it. And that's true with anything, right? But you might go through a process like that if you try to ask different questions. You say, but Jimmy, don't you write the curriculum? So aren't we supposed to ask those questions? No. The curriculum is 100% Dumbo's feather. Well, let me explain. Dumbo believed that he could fly because he was holding this feather, right? And because he thought it was a magic feather. And so when he would fly, he actually had the confidence to be able to fly because he had this magic feather. One day he drops the magic feather and they're plummeting to their, imminent doom. And the mouse says, I was just kidding. The feather was fake the whole time. You actually can fly without the feather. And then he actually started flying. That's what I mean by the curriculum is Dumbo's feather. It is a fine place to start. It's okay to use those questions to get the ball rolling. If I didn't give you anything, you wouldn't do it. But I think you can ask better questions if you look at people and you listen, and then you're curious about them. And what's God doing? What's God up to? What's he doing with this person? What's going on with me? And you start asking some of these questions where you're going, well, I don't know, is the answer. So if you don't ask those questions, you're never going to find out. It'll be very hard to get interested in people if you only just read the questions. And so it's a fine place to get the ball rolling. But the purpose of the curriculum, and you'll notice there's only 4, 5 questions, is just to get it going. And then once it's going, you won't have time to answer 2. Right? I think you'll notice that. Once people get going, then you'll have good follow-up questions that you can ask, and it goes a lot deeper. It's a lot more interesting. It's more fun, too, just to kind of see what the Spirit is up to in the night and start asking curious questions in places you don't normally go. Anything else that you kind of realized or noticed while you were doing this exercise? Anybody have a epiphany? Yeah.
Well, I just realized that the problem that I talked about was improving communication with my daughter, and that this practice and this whole lesson is kind of an answer for that.
Oh, that's cool. You were like, wait a minute.
Not only is this great for life group, but yes.
Oh, that's perfect. So then it kind of helps you be curious about what's going on. Yeah. It's good. Anything else?
I think we found that the problem, they were looking for affirmation of what they'd already decided.
And so that was kind of what was going on underneath the water.
Yeah.
It's like, I decided this, and I'm hoping you guys agree.
But the process was important
Through
Yeah.
processing it, you find
because,
out.
because I think oftentimes even if we know what we have to do, the process is so important, not just for confirmation, but to talk it out.
Yeah. And then once you've processed it, you feel more confident about it, and then it gives you courage. You're like, okay. It reminds me of Moses' conversation with the Lord over the burning bush, where it sort of starts out with, you got the wrong guy, all the way to, I need some help, all the way to, all right, let's go take on the most powerful nation in the world with a stick. That's pretty impressive, right? That conversation was important, yeah.
I found it a little difficult sometimes to ask questions, and I noticed too in the group that it was easier to try to solve the problem than it was to ask the questions.
Yeah.
So the questions were leading questions in a way that I want to ask you this because this is going to help you solve that problem.
Because you already had your theory of what the solution was. Do you know where which camp your answer was in?
Mine more present, yes.
Present
Action.
action. So you need to do this. Okay. Yeah.
I thought it was kind of a mirrored reflection of who I know that I am already, which I'm a thinker and an actions person. And I have feelings, but I don't operate out of my feelings like most people. They're like the last thing that I go to. And it was interesting that all the dots were mostly on the thinking and the actions and a few feelings, but since I don't really operate out of feelings, it was interesting to see that come through and just me talking about something.
You know, what made me think of this is what you're saying is sometimes the answer isn't what do we do. Like the obstacle is a feeling, right? So it's sort of like the thing that's got you hung up. That's why we just don't understand. We're like, well, here's a problem and I don't know what to do. And you're like, well, here's an answer. I do know what to do. Done. It's like easy. And then it's like, but then they don't do it. And then you're like, well, why didn't you do the thing? You knew the thing. We talked about the thing. I said the thing. You didn't do the thing. And it's like, it's because it has nothing to do with the hang up has nothing to do with the solution. The solution doesn't change. The solution's still the same. The solution was probably good. Maybe it's a bad solution, but probably it's probably a good one. But for some reason they can't do that solution, and that reason could be back here. It could be here, right? It could be down in what I've done in the past didn't work. It could be, I don't have hope for the future, or you know what? Right now I'm kind of panicked just thinking about it. And if you just ignore that, you basically skip where the real solution was, And you'll notice that Jesus does this frequently where it just doesn't even always make sense. It's like the rich young ruler, it says that he looked at him and he loved him. That means that he was a sincere guy, for sure. He didn't look at him and go, oh, brother. Right? He's like, I do everything right, and I've been trying really hard to do everything right, and I just want to do everything right? Is this kind of what this guy feels like to me? And maybe I'm getting that wrong, but that's what it kind of seems like. But I think he really genuinely is. And so Jesus gives him something he can't do, which was a cool opportunity for him to go, I can't do it, help me. Or I can't do it, surrender. I'm going to do it anyways, or whatever. That could have been a transforming moment. But that's not like something you can then turn around and do to the next person. But we have kind of our pet solutions, It's sort of like, hi, nice to meet you. Sell everything you own and give it to the poor. It's like, and they're like, I don't think that would help. And you're like, it would work. It always works. change your thinking about that and you'll be fine. Just always do the thing that you don't want to do, and then you'll always get the solution you wanted to get. So we have our like pet solutions, but Jesus does something totally different. The woman at the well is totally different, the way he interacts with her and the questions he asks and what's going on, and much more gentle and challenging at the same time, Whereas he doesn't ask her to do something so hard she can't do it. In fact, he doesn't ask her to do anything. Or Zacchaeus, he doesn't ask him to. All he says is, "I'm coming to your house," and it changes everything. So he didn't walk up to the next guy that was short and say, "I'm coming to your house," and that guy goes, "You just changed my whole life," right? He paid attention to what that person needed, and then he asked good questions. Make sense? Yeah. Really, really good point. Really good point. That's probably my biggest obstacle is I have a solution. And that solution is not helpful for that person. Yeah. Or this is one that really kills me is at work when I'm helping someone else, that works. And then at home, I'm like, why doesn't the same thing work here? It doesn't make sense. It's the same problem. It's the same whatever. Doesn't work. Yeah. Sorry, somebody raised their hand. I missed it. Oh.
Is the intent to have a solution always? Because sometimes when you talk about things and you're asking the question, it's so that somebody can think about something differently, but it's not solving
Right.
the problem.
Right.
So it's just putting some foundational work for the group to talk about it again and maybe have different aspects or awareness from the conversation that you had last week. It's not a solution-based conversation.
Right.
So
And-
you wouldn't fall into the action thing there?
So future, no, but the future,
You always tell me.
there's a little bit of a marriage conversation going on here. I hope you're listening. I hope you're listening. So this future, that future action orientation, right? It works in a lot of ways and probably works in a lot of categories for some people, right? So it doesn't always make sense. Well, why doesn't this work here? And I think what you're saying is really important. Most conflicts, problems, relationship issues, whatever, are processes. Long, complicated processes, more like a Rubik's Cube than a box that you check, right? And so when we get all the click, 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 all the yellows on one side, we're like done, you're fixed. And then you turn that little Rubik's Cube around, they're all messed up, right? And you're just because you get that one thing kind of worked out, and it doesn't mean there isn't a whole lot of other stuff. And so the idea of things kind of working themselves out in more of a longer term process is huge for relationship, because most things don't quickly resolve, especially when we put them in the category of this is an actual problem. Now, all of this is just to say, I really want you to at least try to be curious about the people in your group, to ask better questions, to dig a little deeper, and to pay attention, put one eye over your shoulder and pay attention to yourself and go, oh, I'm pushing a quick solution. I'm avoiding whole entire categories of people's souls, right? And then you go, uh-oh, that's a problem, and how do I kind of look at somebody more in a holistic way, let things kind of work themselves out in a process, like you're saying. And I think that will have powerful results for the kinds of questions that you ask. If you kind of use this as a way to see it, then you can begin to ask better questions. And that's my hope, is that we all start asking better questions in our groups. Thanks for coming, you guys.